right, everybody, welcome in to episode 66. It is Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. And you, once again, are joining me, Nikhil, and joining me down from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Of course, I'm, as always, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. And this is being recorded on the very last day of February 2023. It is almost springtime in America, fall down in Brazil. And of course, we know what tomorrow brings in America. As John Rothstein talks about, the only thing he will talk about, it is March, which means March Madness is almost upon us. Gus, how are you?
I'm good, good. That's true. It's like, the month where basketball is the protagonist in American sports, especially in the college world. So, I'm definitely going to talk about the implications, the end of the regular season, especially the men in orange as they wrap up their regular season tonight, at least their senior night.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll start there with the Tennessee Volunteers, the basketballs. Um, Still kind of riding that roller coaster. I mean, February was just not a great month for Tennessee. They lost 6 games throughout the course of February. Um, because they lost at Florida, they lost to Kentucky, they lost to Missouri, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M. It's just not the best month for the Vols basketball team. Now, if you look at the rankings, they're still in the top 12. They only fell 10 spots throughout the course of that month. I think partially it's some of the quality of their top wins. We're talking about this off camera. Beating number 1 Alabama at the time, and beating a top 10 Texas team, beating a top 10 Kansas team. I mean, this team has some of the best wins in the entire country. But I mean, when you look at the record, they're still 21-8. And heading now into this final week of the regular season and heading into March, I just don't know if we truly have the confidence here. Now, tonight, they take on an Arkansas team that's kind of coming in on the bubble here. They really do need a big night tonight. In Arkansas, they've struggled this year. They've dealt with some injuries, but they are very talented. They took Alabama to the wire the other night, and they have had some pretty big wins recently. So it's going to be a big game. The Vols are a 5-point favorite heading into tonight. And I just think this is a big game for confidence. I mean, we know the Vols are going to be in March Madness. There's no question about that. Right now, you're fighting for seeding. But I think more than anything, heading into tonight against Arkansas and on the road at Auburn to finish out the regular season on Saturday, a game that, will be a rematch of a game a couple of weeks ago where Tennessee won, but won in a very low-scoring game. It was 46-43 in Knoxville. And I don't know when the last time Tennessee beat Auburn was in Auburn. It's been a long time since they've won down on the plains in basketball. And right now, if you can, try to find a rhythm. And I don't know if this team's going to be able to find that offensive rhythm that they need. And it's rinse and repeat. It's the same thing every year with this basketball program. And it's just like, I wouldn't be excited for the tournament, but I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I am. I don't really think that I am.
I mean, as we discussed before, Nick, it's just the way that this team has been playing with. I was listening to, I think was after the loss to Texas A&M, the press conference of Rick Barnes, and he was saying that he is not seeing the best of their players. Ziegler and Josiah and Santi. He was saying that this team is not achieving their full potential. That's why you're feeling probably confident but not excited. It's because probably it's like the same feeling Rick Barnes had with this roster, is that they are not, in especially this month of February, performing the way they expect. Like it's like Tennessee, you know, handles Alabama. They're only lost in the conference schedule, and then they lose to Vandy which is doing okay, but also, and that's where it's tricky this game versus Arkansas, because Tennessee has struggled with this, middle tier teams like, Missouri, Vandy, Florida, even Mississippi State.
I mean, it's one of those deals where I think this team can make a deep run. I think they can go to the Final Four. I think they can make one of the best runs that this program has ever had. But at the same time, I could just as easily see them go out there and lose in the first round. It, it's I just have no confidence in this team when it comes to the crunch time that they're going to be able to find a way to break their scoring droughts. They're going to be able to find a way to get the ball moving when things aren't coming easy, when they're not able to hit their threes. I'm not confident enough that that our point guards, our decision makers, are going to be willing to pass the ball in situations where they need to. Because I feel like right now you have a group of guys that know they're really talented and they know they have that potential, but they're doing too much. And I really think they're just not confident in each other. And I really think that's going to ultimately be the downfall of this team, because you can play defense all you want, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have to score. I mean, that's what they measure. That's absolutely what they measure with with who wins. And if you hit the wrong team on the wrong day and they come out and they just shoot the lights out, I just don't see us moving on. I mean, right now, if you take a look at Joe Ludinardi's bracketology, his bracket right now, he has the Vols as a 3 seed in the East in the same quadrant as Creighton, Nevada, and Furman. I'm just going to be honest right now, as a neutral observer, I wouldn't pick Tennessee to get out of that. I think Creighton, when you look at their efficiency, when you look at their offense especially, I think that's a bad matchup for the Vols. Furman would even scare me. Um, I just don't like
I mean,
that.
Furman is being leading the Southern Conference along with Sanford, so, and they're on a 3-game winning streak, but it's still a conference below the SEC. But Tennessee
Yeah,
has struggled with those kind of teams in the
exactly.
tournament.
And Furman scores a lot of points. Furman is a very yeah, they score 82 points a game. They have 4 guys to score in double digits. As a team, they shoot 35% from the free. That's a dangerous combination. I mean, last night they beat Sanford 90, or the other day they beat Sanford 93-79. So,
And
and one
and
talk
right
about
now
danger.
and right now Tennessee, tonight's opponent, Arkansas, is an 8 seed. So they're
Yeah.
fighting to keep there.
Yeah. So, I mean, Arkansas will probably make it at that point, but they're obviously fighting to try to get off that 8 line. You'd rather be a 6 or a 7 than be an 8. And obviously, winning on the road at a team like Tennessee would be big for Arkansas, because right now Purdue would be the 1 seed in that. And if somehow Tennessee were able to make it to the Elite Eight here, that would be an intriguing matchup, because Zach Edey is the best center in the country, and that's not a good matchup for the Vols. Now, I will say this: if we're on that day, then I think at our best, our backcourt is better at our best. But do I trust them to be at their best? I don't know. But at the same time, if I looked at this, bracket, this bracket would become true. You look down at that next section. You got Michigan State there. Tom Izzo in March is dangerous, always dangerous. Kansas State, been one of the best surprises in the entire country this year. Florida Atlantic, one of the best best mid majors this entire year. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're in March. Obviously, no path is easy, but I wouldn't like that path for the Vols. I just I just don't think our defensive style is going to get us deep in tournament. Now, I really hope that I'm wrong. I really do hope so, and I get that the very last time Tennessee was on the floor, they beat South Carolina by 40. But South Carolina is one of the worst teams in the conference. So, and they have literally nothing for Tennessee. Like when we look at matchup wise, they probably have the single worst matchup out of any team that we've
And they're
played.
only above LSU, which is going off a rebuild, totally
Yeah.
rebuild.
And that's another team that we absolutely destroyed as well. So, at the very least, we're destroying the teams that you should destroy in the conference. Um, I just wish we had more wins against those mid-major teams, but
Yeah,
or the mid teams in the conference.
it's like Tennessee goes really well, but it's like but even the teams above Tennessee, Kentucky swept Tennessee, Texas A&M, you know, r- got a really good huge win. Like if you look at that, if you take out Alabama, the Tennessee lost to Texas A&M, Kentucky, swept, Missouri, Vandy, Florida. So it's like Tennessee, it has an
I'll say
issue
this
with
though: at least Kentucky has turned it around because there was a time a few weeks ago where we didn't think they would be in the tournament, and now they're a top 6 seed. So, I mean, you got to give Coach Cal credit. He's going to be in the tournament. So, I will give him that, and partially we helped him. We absolutely helped him in that quest. But still, that just I really think the game that turned the tide of this season was that first loss to Kentucky because it felt like Kentucky was just coming off the South Carolina loss. We were absolutely cruising heading into that game. And then Kentucky comes in and wins, and the season hasn't felt the same since that loss.
and it's interesting to see if North Carolina is going to make it because they were in the last four in, now they're in the first four out. I mean, they're the runner ups in the tournament last year.
Absolutely. It's just insane to think because they were preseason number one. And that's even from the beginning of this year, they just didn't come out the gates firing. And if rumors are correct, there are some behind the scenes issues there that are causing problems at UNC. So clearly, the end of the season here, I believe they play Duke again. So that's a must-win game for North Carolina. And then you probably have to go to at least the semis in the ACC tournament, which you have to remember too. The ACC this year is not that good. This might be the worst ACC of our lifetimes. It's just insane. I mean, the ACC by far is probably the sixth best conference in the country this year. The SEC is better, and the SEC in itself, I mean, outside of the very top teams, is not great. I mean, the Big 12 far and away is the best conference in the country this year.
Even
But
though Michigan, which is a traditional uh, program, is also in the first four out.
yeah, well, that's the Big 12. The Big 10 is kind of wonky this year as well. I mean, Wisconsin is right there in
Uh,
the bubble too. Wisconsin has had a lot of success in recent years.
yeah, I mean, if you see the Big 12 teams that you mentioned, like Texas now is a number 2 seed. You have also Iowa. Uh, you also have TCU as a number 5 seed.
Yeah, just
Baylor
looking
number
at
2.
just looking at some of these teams right through here. Really, I think the Big East to me is really fascinating this year. When you look at the Creighton, you look at Xavier, you look at Marquette. Marquette right now, I believe, is see what seed are they? They should be like a 2 or a 3. They're a 3 seed right now against Colgate up in the South. Marquette right now, they have their highest ranking since the 70s. So I mean, Shaka Smart really, I always thought that was a weird move for him to go from Texas to Marquette, but he's making it work up in Milwaukee. He's doing a really good job. Um, Indiana, I know I believe if I just saw, they are taking a beating right now at the hands of Iowa. Iowa right now is up
75.
75 to 20. Yeah, up by 20 in Bloomington. And Iowa right now is an 8 seed. And Iowa is just always one of those teams in the tournament that always has the talent, but they always choke. It's like Iowa and Tennessee. are the Atlanta Falcons in the Los Angeles Chargers of college basketball. They always falter in March. It's seemingly another team there. An old friend of ours, Oral Roberts, at 12, in that tops regional, the South regional. And they still have a lot of those same players, like Max Abrams, the guy who's really the superstar of their Sweet 16 team a couple of years ago. He's still there. I mean, that team is better now than it was then. So Oral Roberts, I mean, that's a team that can make another deep run this year out of Tulsa. UConn Yale, if that matchup happened in the East, it'd be a 4-13. I mean, imagine that. I mean, you have the top public school in Connecticut versus the Ivy League school in Connecticut in Yale. I mean, that would just be a fascinating matchup for cultural reasons. See,
and UConn is more known for their women's program. I know they had a brief, run back in the early 2010s, but they're their dynasty in women's basketball.
oh yeah, absolutely. Of course, Memphis right now they're kind of hanging on for a tournament spot. So I'm interested to see if they can finish it off. Yeah, so and Northwestern, shout out to Northwestern, a 6 seed, comfortably in the field at this point. So there's just a lot here that's going to change, obviously, over the next few weeks. Of course, the mid-major conference tournaments start this week. So we'll start knowing some of these mid-major qualifiers by the end of this weekend. And heading into next week is when all the big conference tournaments start. So that's going to be all super, super fascinating. Real quick, Gus, how do you think the Vols are going to finish off the regular season versus Arkansas and at Auburn?
I expect them to at least pick up one win. I would imagine it's tonight, uh, because Auburn definitely wants to win their senior game and revenge their loss in Knoxville. But again, I just feel like hopefully Tennessee would finish their regular season high. I would expect them to at least go to the semis in the SEC tournament, but at least those doubts, that uncertainty makes this team stronger when it comes to March Madness.
Yeah, if we're gonna make a run, it has to start this week. I agree with you. I think they're gonna go 1-1. I almost this is gonna sound crazy. I almost think they lose tonight and then go on the road and win on Saturday.
That would be such a. I would not. I would not be surprised because then you lose to a mid team that's 8-8 in conference and 19-10 overall, but you ended up winning the team that is fighting for like a top spot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all is if that happens. I think both will be one possession games. So hopefully we can. And at least the good thing is Josiah Jordan James made his return on Saturday, so hopefully that helps some heading down the stretch.
At least, hopefully, maybe one of those one maybe tonight or hopefully or maybe on the week on Saturday. I feel like Tennessee's gonna win on the buzzer beater because they've been losing so much buzzer beaters.
That's what this team needs. If that happens, the team might actually get hot. I feel like the team needs something like that to really jumpstart itself. So I know I've been very negative in this segment, but there's still that part of me that believes that something could happen. But it's almost like a kid believing in Santa Claus, and then you eventually find out Santa Claus isn't real. Because I mean, I would love for nothing more than Rick Barnes to lead the Tennessee Volunteers to the Final Four. But I'll have to see it to believe. It's like in the Polar Express, seeing is believing, and I need to see to believe.
And I'm going to be in a more positive, optimistic note that we see this team over delivering regular season, under delivering March Madness. Maybe this year is the opposite.
I had that thought. I didn't want to say it, but I had that thought. So I hope you're right. Maybe this is opposite day, and I would for sure love that. Really quick on the women's side of things, the Lady Vols have concluded their regular season, and now they are heading into the SEC Women's Tournament this weekend down in Greenville, South Carolina. And credit to the Lady Vols, they finished third in the SEC after a really rough start, and they finished off of a pretty good record here in the regular season. And it it really is interesting when you look at the women's bracketology. They are a 5 seed. So if they go on a deep run here in the SEC tournament, they might get to host in the NCAA tournament as a top 16 seed team. But I almost think that would require them beating either South Carolina or LSU. And, that's just been kind of the kryptonite for this team this year. They have not been able to beat these top tier ranked opponents.
Yeah, I mean they only have 3 losses in the SEC, and both two of them were to LSU and South Carolina, which means that they're unable, at least in the regular season, to beat the. I mean, I feel like LSU and South Carolina separate themselves from the league. That's why Tennessee should be proud to be the third in the SEC, because LSU and South Carolina separate themselves in the SEC. So actually, if you compare Tennessee to the others, I mean, they're at the top of their, to the league. If you don't, I mean, if you take it out LSU and South Carolina, which for me is in their league on their own right now.
Yeah, and you have them credit. They did give South Carolina a decent fight last Thursday. They were up for portions of that first half, just were not able to sustain it against just just right now the dynasty of women's college basketball in South Carolina. They're just that good, and it really begs the question: who can beat South Carolina in the country? Can UConn do it? I mean, UConn had a chance. And it feels like if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be them. I don't know if LSU has what it takes. I mean, Angel Reese would probably have to have an incredible game. You have Iowa, of course, with their insane offense. Could they get it done? I mean, I think there are a couple of threats to South Carolina. And I mean, in Tennessee, here's the thing: Tennessee has the players to go toe to toe with a team like South Carolina. And once again, it's kind of like with the men's team. It's just the consistency on the offensive end just hasn't been there in those bigger games, and that has constantly killed them.
And currently, right now, the Lady Vols are a 5 seed, and they have to go to Chapel Hill. And right now, they would have faced South Dakota State, but then they would have faced the winner of Green Bay and North Carolina. So, if let's say Tennessee and North Carolina advance, they would have to play a true road game.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, making a deep run in Greenville is massive for this team. But I really think the only way to get those top 16 seeds is by beating Carolina or LSU, because when you look at Tennessee's resume, they don't have a signature win anywhere, because they literally I believe they've lost to every single ranked team that they've played this year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, literally, they are 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, 0-6, 0-7 in games against ranked opponents this year.
Yeah, they're 0-7.
So, I mean, so they're 21-3 in games against unranked opponents. So they're basically beating the teams that they should. The only really truly bad losses was like UCLA and Gonzaga early in the year. But even I think those two teams are tournament teams. So they haven't lost to any bad teams. UCLA right now is a 5 seed. Is Gonzaga in the field? I don't see Gonzaga. Okay, so Gonzaga, not the best loss, but Gonzaga's an 8 seed. So every single one of their losses are to tournament teams, and you do have to say, does the tough schedule that the Lady Vols played make them better prepared for this? Because you got to remember, Pat Summitt did win a national championship with a team back. I believe it was the 1997 team. That team had 10 losses too. They did not have a great regular season, but they got it together in the postseason and they won a national championship. I believe Kelly Harper, as Kelly Joy, was on that team. Now, I'm not saying this team is going to do that because I think the competition's a lot better now. But this team could be in a position to maybe make some surprises. And if just looking at that bracket there in the as a 5 seed, uh, I think they could make a run. I mean, Utah's a 1 seed. Okay, I mean, it shows you how much I've watched outside of Tennessee. Um, I mean, they could make a run there. They could absolutely make a run there. I mean, what doesn't? I mean, what stops this team from doing it? You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's the kind of thing that last year they did well in the tournament. I think they were eliminated in the Sweet 16, but but the questions are a lot of comparisons, especially in the media, between Kelly Harper and Holly Warlick in terms of expectations and delivery, and of course, you and that all came back to both are products of Pet Summit, so they are going to be compared to their kind of their 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 lead the yeah,
The leadership and legacy.
yeah, the legacy of.
So actually, I've got an interesting question I just thought of. Who has more pressure coming into March, Rick Barnes or Kelly Harper?
That's an interesting question. Uh, I think Rick Barnes has more pressure to make it into a Final Four than Kelly Harper, but Kelly Harper has more pressure to make it further into the tournament. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess your argument would be that Kelly Harper's program, historically, you would expect the Lady Vols to be a deep program. But with the teams they currently have, there's going to be more expectation for Rick Barnes to go deeper in the tournament.
And I feel like I mean, you see the question is the progress of Kelly Harper compared to Rick Barnes, because Rick Barnes went from what it inherited and what is now. I feel like it's significant different. I don't know if we can say the same about Kelly Harper.
Oh yeah, I mean, right now, Kelly Harper, I would say is over. It should be at the point where we're done with the rebuild. Um, and Rick Barnes is clearly done with a rebuild, and we're now truly in the Rick Barnes program. And you know, at this point, what we have in Rick Barnes is what we're going to have. So the question is that good enough? And there's a lot of people out there who have come down on the side of it's never going to be enough. And if any Tennessee team is going to prove those people wrong, including me to an extent, then it's got to happen this year. Meanwhile, with Kelly Harper, I think the jury might still be out on her. Although I know there's some people on that side of the aisle who also are getting more vocal in opposition as well. So
I think
it's a,
do you know I feel like a lot of pundits are kind of comparing Kelly Harper and Holly Warlick is because a lot of people were like, "Oh, let's take time. Holly Warlick is going to develop," and then by the end of her tenure, it was a disappointing team, a very kind of frustrating team. I remember
go ahead. I think he has frozen up, so we'll have to get back to that thought when he um, is able to get back in, internet wise. But I think trying to finish off what I think where he was going with that. So the pundit here in Knoxville and in East Tennessee, I guess I've had to recently break this over the past few years. Are you back, Gus?
yes, I'm back. Yes, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah. So you were talking about the pundits and like, so where were you going with that thought?
Let me start over again. I feel like a lot of people comparing Kelly Harper and Holly Warlick is because a lot of analysts feel that the end of the tenure of Kelly Harper will be the same result of Holy Warlick, uninspired team that struggled to even make the last seed of the tournament, to be eliminated in the first round, and and be a lot of disappointment by the end. And that's why, and because the argument was, oh, we have to give Holy Warlick time to develop their own roster. And by the end, I remember, was very uninspired. I remember being a game in Thompson Bowl Arena, and the fans were like down, disappointed.
Yeah, and that's what I've worried about TB at times on the men's side this year. There's been times where the atmosphere didn't feel like it was there. Now, to the credit of TB, I think as the season has gone along, the atmospheres have gone better. Like at the Missouri game I was at, the atmosphere was really good in the second half. The Alabama game, the atmosphere was really good, but still, still felt better in the past. And some people will say, due to the success of football, people don't have as much energy for basketball. But I disagree with that. I mean, Alabama, their crowds have turned up, and they've always been a football power, at least for the past 15 years. I mean, we have plenty of energy in East Tennessee to go around to all these teams. I mean, just look at the baseball crowds we're about to have. So
that argument doesn't make any sense. I mean, does football and basketball play at the same time? No. So it's like, oh my god, I have energy to root for one sport but not for another. I mean, I thought you were a Tennessee Volunteer fan, not a Tennessee football fan.
Well, unfortunately, there are people out there who are like Tennessee football fans, but they're Kentucky basketball or North Carolina basketball or they're
Are you
Alabama
kidding me?
football. Yeah, there are people out there like that who exist.
It's like,
Because
oh my god, I'm gonna root for Corinthians in basketball, but for Palmeiras in soccer, I'll be like, that doesn't exist. Oh my
yeah.
god.
And you see this a lot amongst older people just because when they were growing up, Tennessee wasn't very good in basketball. So they didn't have that connection to the basketball. So they went and rooted for North Carolina instead. I mean, it's kind of strange. Or they're like Alabama football, but Duke basketball. It's strange. I just don't know how you are able to.
I mean, I get it if you're like, oh, I root for the Mocs and the Vols. Like, I root for Rio Branco, and oh, look who is watching us. Our man, Jason Wyrick.
Let's see what I have to say. When I was at Louisville, we had Lamar, Donovan Mitchell, and Will Smith at the same time, and the crowds were electric for everything. Also, I do want to mention this because it is senior night. Let me go back because the Vols game is about to come on here. I want to give a shout out to Olivier Kamois, Santiago Vescovi, Uos Plavich, and Josiah Jordan James, and Tyreek Key. And I can't remember. He's number 21. He's one of the bench guys. I'm sorry. I feel bad for not knowing your name. But they are the 6 seniors being honored tonight on senior night. So congratulations to them. Always exciting to see some more VFLs go up into the rafters.
Ken Gilbert. Ken Gilbert.
I know that felt super rude.
Ken Gilbert. Ken Gilbert. Shout out to Ken Gilbert.
Yeah, Ken Gilbert. Sorry for disrespecting your name. He's gonna come off the bench and hit the game-winning free tonight.
Currently also in progress. I'm gonna deep down analysis. Still 0-0 in rainy Rio. Flamengo. I don't know. They have less than 20 minutes. What?
Oh man. So Victor Pereira has 20 minutes to save his job.
Yes, Victor Pereira has 18 minutes to save his job. I'll be updating as the game progresses, since we talk about live games being in progress.
Okay, and when that game ends, interrupt wherever we are, we'll jump straight to that because that's going to be massive. But I do want to get, as Arkansas and Tennessee are about to tip off in TBA, hopefully go Vols, hopefully we get the dub tonight. Let's take it over to the pitch because the baseballs have had an odyssey of sorts. Dealing with the mighty NCAA, the proletariat NCAA, coming on and trying to create more problems.
The comrades.
Yeah, they're coming in to Knoxville to create more problems because they do not give us anything easy in Knoxville. So of course, this past offseason, we go out and we get a transfer from Kansas, Maui Ahuna, one of the top prospects in the entire country, a shortstop. But someone wasn't happy. Now, it isn't official who's happy. There are rumors flying around about who might have turned in Tennessee to the NCAA for saying that we were contacting him when we weren't supposed to and all that. And I didn't even realize there were still rules about that. I knew there were rules about that in the recruiting period, but it still seemed kind of crazy that there were rules about that during baseball season as the Vols get the first points of the night. It looked like Jemime. No, it was Ziegler. It was Ziegler who got that bucket at the rim. So, if you go back to the opening weekend, when the Vols lost the opening 2 games, we were sitting back wondering, where's this Ahuna? Where is this guy that we have heard all about all offseason? It's supposed to be unreal. Well, it turns out someone turned in Tennessee to the NCAA and claimed that we had inappropriately messaged him. So Tony Vitello gets suspended for the entirety of last week. Jason Wyrick said, the rumor I heard was he announced he was transferring and we contacted him before he was officially in the portal, but I have no idea how accurate this is. So it was something like that. And the rumor is, and I'm not at my job, so I can speculate. I couldn't do this if I were on the air. I am on the air, but not on paid air. That Dave Van Horn turned in the Volunteers. That's at least the rumor that I heard that was flying around. I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems plausible considering that Van Horn and Vitello have a past. And Arkansas, just the baseball program, their fans, they really are obsessed with the baseballs. It's weird. I mean, Arkansas, LSU, and Vanderbilt are all obsessed with Tennessee. Like anytime you go on a tweet concerning anything Tennessee baseball related, you look into the comments. There's like the same 5 Arkansas fans, LSU, Vanderbilt. I think oh my gosh, what a you should have seen this, an alley oop from Ziegler to Kamwa. 4-0 Volunteers. That was an excellent dunk by Olivier on senior night. It's just weird. Like, I haven't watched a single pitch of Arkansas, LSU, or Vanderbilt. I can't even tell you what records they have. I know LSU is like number 1 in the country or whatever. And honestly, I haven't got to catch the majority of Tennessee baseball this year. I've watched bits and pieces. But these fans, they're more of Tennessee baseball fans than I am. Like, they are obsessed. If they could buy season tickets for Volunteers games just to come and cheer against the Vols, they would.
And I mean, and right now, LSU is having a tough game versus Texas Longhorns. Top of the 9th, top of the 6th inning, still scoreless. And I know Tennessee took care of business versus Charleston Southern. But I mean, hopefully this will be the end of the troubles. I know Vitello probably, is probably going to use this as like, hopefully hopefully Vitello used this as like a motivating factor, like us against the world, us against NCAA and all the jealous programs.
Well, I don't know if you're paying attention to me, Gus, at the moment. I'm kind of in a surrender Cobra. Dang. Sakai Ziegler, he just might have torn his ACL or something.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he is down on the court. Man, I know I've been super critical of him recently. Some of the play, but man, when he's playing at really good, he's definitely, he makes the team better. So that would certainly be a loss for the team if he is out. So that's not good. And there's no contact; he just kind of slipped on his own. So those are always the worst seeming type of injury. So we'll definitely have to keep track of what happens with Sakai, and that's unfortunate because if you're not familiar with his story, um, he was unknown completely by the recruiting world. Rick Barnes finds him at a basketball pickup tournament in Queens. He literally comes from poverty up in New York, and during his freshman year, um, literally his family's apartment in New York burns down, and Tennessee fans come together collectively to buy his family a new house in Knoxville. So yeah, so he's been a fan favorite since the beginning. He's always played super hard, at times reckless, um, but still, man, that is brutal. That's a brutal uh, way for his season to potentially end. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it just didn't end right there. But it almost reminds me a little bit of Hendon Hooker's injury against South Carolina. So just a very unfortunate.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be okay because it'll be a really tough, loss for Tennessee roster in March.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if I mean without him, it's going to be hard to make a deep run. Let's just be honest. Um, so that's dang. That is unfortunate. Prayers up for say. Prayers up for ZZ. Um, man. So anyway, back on the baseballs. Um, so Vitello gets suspended for 3 games. Ahuna was still out this weekend. The Vols did sweep Dayton, and thankfully Ahuna has been instated. He made his debut tonight, and Vitello has returned back from his suspension. So it seems like the situation has been resolved for the time being. So that is certainly good to see. But it seemed like it was overboard by the NCAA. So Sakai was helped off the court. He basically was hopping off on 1 foot. Had to be helped off the court. So that is man, he was just running too. Just popped. The knee just popped on him. Man. Yeah, so I don't, because here's the thing now, because he was the most true point guard that you had. So now you're gonna have Vescovi that's gonna have to run the point, and he's better off ball. Yeah, Meshack, but he's better off ball. Yeah, I think BJ Edwards was gonna have to play a lot more now. If he's out the rest of the season. Yeah. This stinks, Guinness. This stinks. This is it's just terrible.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
speaking of,
gotta find a way to keep going.
yeah, and speaking of, college SEC basketball, there's one player who's playing right now with so many controversy.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just collect myself so I don't say anything I regret. So legally, Brandon Miller in the state of Alabama, according to the Tuscaloosa police, did nothing wrong. But basically, if you don't know the story of Brandon Miller, apparently what happened is that, if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, a woman was murdered on the strip in Tuscaloosa, and she was allegedly murdered by God, what was his name? It was Miles. It was Darius Miles, who was murdered. He murdered 23-year-old Jemiah Janae Harris on January the 15th down in Tuscaloosa. Right now, Miles is charged with capital murder. Another guy named Michael Lynn Davis, who was not on the Alabama basketball team, was also charged with capital murder. Right now, they are sitting in the Tuscaloosa jail, awaiting their trial. They're probably still waiting on the bond hearing. Well, the bond hearing's probably already happened. They're probably now waiting on the probable cause hearing. So Brandon Miller comes to the picture when, during court testimony, it came out that that Brandon Miller, that Miles had asked Miller to to bring him a gun on that night. And apparently, the gun belonged to Miles, but for some reason, Miller had the gun. And so they transported the gun, and then Miles goes and shoots Harris. So essentially, what detectives have said and what the legal and what prosecutors have said in this case is that because Miller did not know the that Miles was going to use that gun to murder someone, that Miller has no culpability in this crime. But meanwhile, that very same day that news comes out, Nate Oates, the coach for Alabama, goes up on a press conference and says that because I got to pull up this quote because this is just insane what Nate Oates said. Um, he said basically that Nate Oates was at the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm going to pull up the entire quote here because it's pretty insane, really, what he said. He said, "We knew about Brandon Miller having the gun. Can't control everything anybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any type of trouble, nor is he in any type of trouble in this case. Wrong spot at the wrong time." And, we do have to recognize it is America, everyone in America that has not had a felony that is eligible has the constitutional right to own a firearm. But, it does seem weird that, if you're sitting back and because I heard someone else bring up this point that if you're sitting back, it's a late Friday or a late Saturday night, and someone asks you to bring a gun to them to like the most crowded place. Like this thing about this, Gus. If I were to call you and you're just chilling at home in Maryville, and I say, "Hey, Gus, I'm hanging out at the corner of Jackson Street and Gay Street in the Old City. I need you to bring my gun to me right now at 1 a.m." Would you not find something suspicious with that?
I'll be asking you, are you some sort of trouble, Nicholas Hill? Are you okay? What kind of trouble are you in? That's what I will ask you.
Yeah, instead of just actually just bringing the gun, even if it were my gun. Um, and it's kind of insanity, when you look at some of the things that the NCAA has punished people for, mostly just paying, like think about the trouble Reggie Bush got in for taking illegal payments. Those payments got his family, nice cars, a nice house. It wasn't like he was doing something bad. I mean, he was trying to provide for his family, like everyone tries to. Brandon Miller, though, inadvertently, helped his teammate. Um, uh,
But
his teammate a gun that used to kill someone.
yeah, but it's. I feel like it definitely gives you a bad vibe for this roster, and Nate Oates seems overwhelmed with the situation. I feel like he should ask his colleague Nick Saban about it. I feel like Nick is the kind of coach that knows how to deal with those kind of situations. And Jason Wire has an interesting comment. That here's the thing: being accomplished to a murder isn't a violation; it's a felony. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of the thing, like especially if you, I, I, he'll be at like he'll probably say like, "Hey, I was just holding a property. I didn't do anything bad with it," but definitely would give some. It for the eyes of the jury might seem as like, "Hey, you handled the object that killed someone to this
Yeah, but
person."
the question here is why is the prosecution not going after them? Like, I mean, literally, the chief deputy said that that's not a question I can answer to why we didn't charge him. It just says there's nothing we could charge him with. And I guess you can make the argument that since he didn't explicitly know that the murder was going to happen, that he shouldn't be charged there. Like that there was nothing premeditated about it from his end because he didn't know that that murder was going to be used to murder that woman. Um, but still, it's just a bad culture. I mean, literally, you as a head coach, have to step back and realize, okay, we have players on our team handing off guns to one another in the middle of the night in the busiest areas of Tuscaloosa. And that just does not seem odd, and especially considering that I feel like in most cases, Miller would be at least indicted. Now, I don't know if he would get like charged. I don't know if he would get convicted on these charges in most cases, but it feels like that he is getting a more benefit of the doubt than you otherwise would because he's the best basketball player that that school's ever had. He's one of the best athletes that they've had in the past year or two. When you consider him and Bryce Young and Jameer Gibbs, it feels like that the city of Tuscaloosa, the county of Tuscaloosa, is covering up for Brandon Miller, and then you have Nate Oates trying to just say, "Oh, this is just a dumb college kid mistake." A dumb college kid mistake is getting too drunk and throwing up in an Uber at 2 a.m. freshman year. But last time I checked, that that that's not the same as delivering a gun to a weird situation.
And
And
this
because
gun ended up being used, allegedly being used on a crime.
exactly, it wouldn't be weird if you said like let's say I'm in Knoxville, you're in Blount County, you're in the mountains, and saying, "Hey Nick, come bring me a gun, let's go hunting." I'm like, okay, yeah, I that's not weird, because that's something that you would use a gun to do, to go out into the wilderness and hunt. So yeah, and Jason is kind of getting to the point here. So this is what I really wanted to get to. So on Saturday, they come out in their game versus Arkansas, which by the way, Vols are up now 13-8 on the Hogs. So Brandon Miller comes out first home game. They went to Vanderbilt on Wednesday, which Brandon Miller still played in. He comes out and then he and a walk-on does a TSA pout down entrance on him. I mean, just straight up mocking all the people that are raising, I think, legitimate concerns about this case in a situation where a woman with a 5-year-old child, was murdered in the middle of Tuscaloosa. And Bama fans are celebrating it. I mean, and they want to call the audacity of Tennessee fans being like the most the the most delusional, the most ruthless group of fans. But some of the stuff you've seen Alabama fans do this past week have just been unbelievable.
Oh, shout out to Spencer Young. Thanks for watching. It's crazy to think that someone could help a murder another person. Thanks for watching, Spencer, and it's a valid point.
I mean, and then Nate Oates came out today and said that he takes the blame for the situation. He said, "The situation is on me. We addressed it as a team, and as soon as I brought it to them, they immediately understood about how it could be interpreted. We all felt awful about it. They explained to me that it's like when TSA checks you before you got on a plane, and now Brandon's cleared for takeoff. We as adults should have been more sensitive to how it could be interpreted. I dropped the ball. That's it. I dropped the ball on it. We've addressed it. I can assure you that won't happen again." Come on. And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. We just feel bad about it. I mean, look, I mean, I could, even if I am generous and say, okay, we're just going to believe that whole deal was Brandon Miller being cleared for takeoff. I mean, everything that team has gone through, and especially with this past week, you can't tell me that the TSA check-in was not a reference to the whole to this whole situation. And I really do think that in a way they're kind of trying to mock and get back at the at those who are criticizing them. And I think there's a bad culture run amok in Tuscaloosa. One that we haven't seen in college basketball since the early 2000s in Baylor.
And I feel like it will kind of overshadow the things they were doing on the court, because what a in terms of on the court they're doing a phenomenal season. Only you know one loss in the SEC that was for the Vols. So, but definitely this kind of overshadows the situation.
Absolutely. And then you have to ask yourselves too, because Brandon Miller is probably going to declare for the NBA. He's currently projected to be a lottery pick. How much do you think that's going to affect that? Do you think NBA teams are going to be more hesitant to pick him?
Yeah, probably he'll fall into the draft.
Yeah, I mean, which definitely could be a double-edged sword because that probably means he'll get picked by a better team and he'll be able to compete for a championship much quicker. But at the same time, that's a loss in you know a potential rookie salary for him. So it certainly is going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. I mean, clearly the prosecution in this case have decided not to indict him. I would be curious to see though if the victim's family tries to sue him, because sometimes you see that where if the prosecution decides not to indict someone, not to charge someone with a crime, then the victim are still going to try to get a civil lawsuit anyway. And I'm very curious to see what else gets determined in court because if we've just had the bail hearing so far, that means you're going to learn more in the probable cause hearing. And that is going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. And it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out for Alabama because they have two more games here in the regular season. I believe, I think they have, I don't think they've played yet. They play tomorrow night against Auburn. So there you go. No, that's going to be fascinating. It's in Tuscaloosa. So, and then Alabama goes to Texas A&M on Saturday. So be curious to see what the Tide do. Certainly, probably the most interesting team left in the college basketball landscape. But we'll just have to continue to see how that all plays out. We'll certainly have much more on March Madness, hopefully less on tough topics like that. Some NBA and LeBron, a few weeks after setting the all-time scoring record, has suffered a right foot injury. He's out for at least 2 weeks as the Lakers are in a play-in battle. Do you think the Lakers are done?
With this injury, probably will hurt a lot of their chances. Now we're gonna see if that trade that got a lot of bench players gonna work out. But I mean, it's just the Lakers are they have to make a trade or make a decision because clearly LeBron and Anthony Davis duo is not gonna work out because it might overload one. Like LeBron is right now, and AD probably is not a reliable player. So Lakers are in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, so right now, yeah, the Lakers are actually playing at Memphis. Memphis is up 110 to
Flamingo
97.
scores in the
How
last
much time
minute
left?
of the game. Flamingo scores.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
god! In the last minute,
So
Dea
now we're going to
Hascaeta
penalties, right? So
score.
it'll be
I
penalties,
think
right?
they're gonna go extra time. Vitor Pereira seems like relieved. He had the face of relief. He's like 1 minute away from losing his job, and right now, if the goal is valid, because there's always VAR, he at least has the extra time to save himself. Oh my god. I, I, it didn't look like it was going to be that way. Flamingo looked disorganized and all over the place and giving counterattacks, but cross from Gabriel Barbosa, of all people, then I think Everton Cebolinha crosses on the in the little area, and then De Arrascaeta comes straight to score in the last minute. What a lucky shot! Flamengo scores 1-0. Game goes to game's gonna go to extra time, but Vitor Pereira faces is the face of relief, face of like, oh my god. For now, my ass is safe.
Wow. Sometimes fates and destiny are
Yeah,
altered by the
I was like,
smallest of moments.
yeah, I was like, following the game. I was like ready to say, oh my god, the game is done. They checking on VAR. They're still checking on VAR, so it's not 100% if it was a goal or not. They're still checking, but I don't see. Oh, if they're checking for offside, clearly not. Clearly not. It shouldn't be offside.
Yeah, so
At
definitely we'll
least
have
from
more
my view.
updates on Flamingo here
Yeah.
But yeah, but as I said, the Lakers are currently losing at Memphis, so that looks like it's going to be a loss tonight. And yeah, it's just the road gets tougher. Um, and when you look at the competition around that play in mark, I think the other teams around there are a much better spot. I mean, Portland literally has Damian Lillard, who just scored 71. That's what I forgot to put in, Gus. I told you beforehand. There's something I knew I forgot to put in. It was Damian Lillard going off for 71 against the Rockets. And the Rockets just don't play defense. They don't have any organization as a team. I mean, it's if you wanted to see what would happen if an AAU coach took over an NBA roster, it would be the Houston Rockets. They just chuck up random shots and they play no defense. It's quite an interesting attempt, but they're 13 and 47, so it's not working for the Houston Rockets clearly. But honestly, I'll just say this: I'd rather see any of these other teams make the tournament or make the NBA playoffs and make that postseason instead of. Oh my God, do we have another injury? No, he's good.
Oh, quick update. Game going to extra time. Goal was valid, and the referee blows the whistle. So it literally was the last play of the game. Flamengo still alive, 1-0. Game goes to extra time in Maracanã. But boy, oh boy, was really by this close of Vitor Pereira losing. But at least he has 30 minutes extra to save his job.
Yeah, it looks like Tobe Awaka for the balls took a pretty hard fall to the ground, so he was kind of limping. So far, I mean, the Falls are leading by 5, but they are losing a lot so far. So no update yet on Zakai Ziegler. I'm assuming he's out for the rest of the game. I'm assuming, but back on NBA. When you look at any of these other teams, I would rather see the Warriors. I'd rather see the Jazz. I would rather see the Timberwolves. I'd rather see the Pelicans with Zion. I'd rather see Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers. I'd rather see Shai Gilgeous or Gilgis. I'm not sure how you say it. SGA. Gilgis Alexander for the Thunder. Then I'd rather see this Lakers team because this Lakers team is just bad. They have a terrible cast. They play no defense. They don't deserve to be in the playoffs. And I think it's about time for them to blow it up in LA.
No, I agree. I think it's time for them to blow it up, and you know, but the Lakers, if you you know, if you think about it, after the Kobe, Shaq, Phil Jackson era was done, they only have a brief moment by 09, 010, but then was only bad this two seasons, but then was a lot of like big hires but no success, and a lot of blow it up, rebuild, blow it up, rebuild.
Oh, absolutely. I did want to ask a question on Lillard specifically because he is in the middle of this playoff rebuild and he's dropping 30. He's averaging 32.3 points a game right now. I mean, the last 10 games he's been averaging 40 points a game. I know he's 32. He's getting up there in age. I would like to see him with a true championship contender before his career is over. I think, I admire him for loving Portland and wanting to stay there, but he's never going to be a title contender in Portland. I would love to see him go somewhere else and be a championship contender.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's true. It's just, you know, and the kind of thing that something is the kind of decisions like, do you want to be the protagonist in a mediocre team or be the number 2 in a bigger team? That's a decision every player like Damian Lillard has to face.
Absolutely,
Clearly Portland is not going to supply Damian Lillard with a true championship roster.
I mean, think about this though. What if he went to a team like the Knicks, right now the 5th seed in the East, and you look at what they have? I mean, that's. I mean,
superstar in New York. Knicks is dying to have a player like that. When was Carmelo Anthony was probably the last really big player who went for the Knicks.
I mean, because Jalen Brunson is good. He is a good point guard for the Knicks, but I mean, he's not Damian Lillard though. I mean, Damian Lillard with Julius Randle and RJ Barrett. I mean, that'd be a good core. Yeah, and Spencer Young says it's time to do a complete rebuild and get rid of LeBron. Yes, Lakers are about to go to are just about to go to the upside down for a couple of years. You're not going to hear from them for a while. They got a ring. Granted, it was the COVID ring, so no one cares. Yeah, the bubble ring, but you got a ring regardless.
Yeah, it was the kind of ring that if for all the stats and all the history it counts, LeBron's gonna be I mean LeBron's gonna say, hey, I won NBA championship with 3 franchises. It's true, but of course the Lakers weren't in front of their fans, so it weren't
Right.
100% like let's say when the Milwaukee Bucks won literally the year after.
And LeBron he's never going to be like the first Laker you think of. It's always going to be Kobe. It's always going to be Shaq. You're going to think of Magic before him. You're going to think of Abdul-Jabbar before him. You're not going to like LeBron's about maybe the sixth or seventh most influential Laker ever. I mean that's just facts. I know he won a title, but I mean who cares? It's not like the Lakers had never won one before he went there. It's not like the Cavs. I mean, obviously, he's the most influential single Ohioan ever. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, in terms of, especially in Cleveland with that basketball
That's why
legacy.
LeBron should retire as a Cavs. He should, in his last season, come back to the Cavs and do a final tour like Kobe did.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where he belongs. I know he had a couple of really good years in Miami, but still, I still think of Dwayne Wade more when I think of Miami. Um, LeBron is Cleveland. Like that's where he should be. I don't know if that makes sense for him to go back there now, but that's where he should end it. He's still clearly good enough to play for a couple of more years. Um, but at some point, you're going to have to transition away from him being the number one option and him being another piece. And that's kind of weird to think about with LeBron because LeBron's always been that guy for almost 20 years now. But Father Time always comes to an for all of us, and it's coming for LeBron now. Spencer says it all depends on the market that they are trying to get in as well. They have to decide if they want to be the star in a small market or possibly be a star in a large one.
Yeah, that's what my point about Damian Lillard. Exactly what I said about it.
Oh,
I guess there's
oh,
updates in Knoxville.
Olivier Comwa just. Oh, I'm going to rewind this because he just absolutely annihilated this guy for Arkansas. Man, what a dunk. Dude, so that's 2 big dunks by Comwa so far tonight. Absolutely lining it up on senior night. 21-15 Vols, 6 minutes left in the first half.
And the extra time just started in Maracanã. Flamengo won, Independiente del Valle nil. First game was 1-0 Independiente del Valle. So still 30 minutes after the miraculous last minute goal by De Arrascaeta. And I want to thank Spencer Young to watch us. And another comment he says about completely rebuild and get rid of LeBron. I mean, the kind of culture LeBron brings to a franchise is that he goes totally dominant, not only on the court decision, but he acts like an informal manager, an informal GM. That's kind of LeBron's personality.
Yeah, but I mean, it shouldn't have to be that way. I mean, the closest thing in sports that you have to him is Tom Brady. And while I could say yes, the Bucks roster did kind of revamp under him, he did make some sacrifices in order for that to happen. I mean, this is our criticism of Aaron Rodgers, that he won't make the sacrifices that a Tom Brady will make to win. And obviously in NBA, your cap is a lot less stringent than it is in the NFL. But it's just kind of interesting to compare different superstars.
Yeah, that's true. And NBA is all about the stars, all about the making a roster with 1 or 2 stars. But It's the kind of thing that we'll see what happens. I mean, the NBA fight is for the playoffs interesting, I think. Of course, the East, you have Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly leading. I think Philly is going to win the East, but losing in the NBA Finals like the Eagles did, the Phillies did, and the Union did. It's going to complete the forfecta.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Embiid get one, but that's going to require them beating the Celtics and the Bucks. And honestly, if they beat those two teams, I could see them winning the entire thing. So the both conference playoffs this year should be really, really entertaining. And definitely as we get closer and closer, we're
I mean,
going to discuss more.
Phoenix now is on a rise. I mean, with the team as with Chris Paul and uh, KD,
KD
you should
makes his
expect.
debut tomorrow. KD makes his debut tomorrow in Phoenix. So that's going to be fascinating to see. Also, I really want to see in the playoffs what Kyrie and Luka do together with the Mavs. I just feel like it might be too much offense, not enough defense
And
with that
Spencer brings
backcourt.
an interesting point that if you want a quick ring, then get LeBron for 2 or 3 seasons, then dump him. He'll rock your organization to some point, or he wears the organization out and leave with nothing, like he did with Miami and Cleveland. But I think that
Yeah.
with the Lakers, though, it's less about LeBron; it's more about the front office poor decisions over the past 2 decades.
Yeah. Also, another team too. I think is interesting. The Clippers with Russell Westbrook. I mean Russell Westbrook coming to the Clippers. So staying in LA, but just go. Well, actually, he briefly left LA, but now he's back in LA, just with the Clippers now. So you have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook on the same team. So quite interesting when you really think about it. Um, what do you think about the Clippers and their chances?
I mean, the Clippers, it's I don't know. I mean, they is a lot of places that a lot of especially Paul George kind of falls in scene. Probably not as much, but a little bit like Westbrook, a player with a lot of promise but didn't deliver. I know Kawhi Leonard got there, and it's so funny. Like Kawhi Leonard, when he was kind of forced to play with Toronto and had true a true team with him, he was probably more star than ever, more even than the Spurs, because he was the leader of the team that needed a leader, and they got a ring. But he went to the Clippers, and I feel like him and Paul George never clicked. So I don't know if Westbrook now as a third piece is gonna help, or you know, or he gonna help more or gonna injure more. Like he's gonna probably.
And you have to remember too, Westbrook and George to play with each other in OKC, and they lost in five to I believe it was the Clippers, or it might have been the Jazz. They lost 2 and 5. Because a lot they had those two. No, it was the Lakers. It was the Trailblazers. Because remember, I think Damian Lillard had one of his crazy shots against them. Um, it was those two and Carmelo. Because remember, it was that big three. OKC was supposed to take over the league, and they did nothing.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the NBA as we approach April and the playoffs.
Yeah, I felt like the one team we all ignored again, the Sacramento Kings. So, it's just incredible. And they haven't been in the playoffs in 17 years, and they're right now the third seed. So, talk about a team that I think America will be rooting for in April if you don't have a rooting interest.
I
Uh,
mean, imagine
they're
if they
true
played.
Cinderella.
I know it's gonna be probably harder, but imagine if they played the Lakers. The revenge they want to take.
Yeah, I don't think the Lakers are going to be good enough to even get there. Um, but
But
yeah,
that's
but ever
probably the
since
team Sacramento
2002,
fans want to beat.
oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, that franchise has not recovered from getting robbed in Game 6 in 2002. So, I mean, that would be absolutely incredible. All right, really quick, some MLB because spring training is in session. And we're already seeing some nonsense with the pitch clock. So I don't know if you saw this, Gus, but it was the end of the spring training game between the Braves and the Red Sox. The game is tied 6-6 at the bottom of the ninth. And as part of the new pitch clock rules, obviously with pitch clock, pitchers have to get a pitch off in a certain amount of time. The batter has to also be set and give the pitcher enough time. So it's 8 seconds that the batter has to give the pitcher. The pitch clock, I believe, is 30 seconds? If I'm correct. Let's see, 15 seconds with bases empty, 20 with runners on. So the batter has to give at least 8 seconds. They have to be set. And the Braves batter didn't do that at the end of this game on Saturday. So the umpire gave him an out. And gave him a strike, which led to the final out. And the game ended tied because they don't play extra innings in spring training. I cannot wait to see what happens when this influences a regular season or forbid a playoff game.
Yeah, baseball fans, the diehard ones, the original ones, will be like, that's not how baseball should be decided.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, think about this. Imagine if you have like the Yankees and Red Sox play. It's Game 7. They say the Yankees are down by 1 in Yankee Stadium. That bases are loaded, and then Aaron Judge gets called out because he wasn't set in time. Imagine.
There's gonna be revolts in Bronx.
Yeah, this has the potential to cause riots that we've never seen before in baseball. This could cause soccer level riots that we see in Europe. Man, I was going to be interesting to see because in playoff baseball too, they tend to go slower anyway because every pitch tends to be more intense. And I almost wonder if the pitch clock for the playoffs especially is going to hurt the game. Because the playoffs, I don't really care how long a playoff game is because every moment's intense. Every pitch is intense. Regular season, I get it. Playoffs, I think we could see a problem.
I think you should have give 40 seconds because isn't that I feel like it would be the same time of a pitch as of a play clock in the NFL. I think 40 seconds that should be enough.
Yeah, it seems like that would be what would make sense, but I don't know. I'm fascinated to see how this plays out.
Yeah, really I know that, especially when it because spring training people don't care, but like you really care when there's a real game being played, regular season especially, and October baseball.
Yeah, if that happened in a Braves playoff game, I would be furious. But it's spring training, so maybe this will be a chance for MLB to figure out their issues. But that's asking for a lot because Rob Manfred is still in charge. So, that means that this will definitely rear its ugly head.
Quick update. Thiago Vieira, Brazilian pitcher, signed a deal with the Milwaukee Brewers in spring training, but he's going to be on a minor league deal.
That's awesome. Congrats to him. So maybe he can work his way up to the majors.
Yeah, he played in the majors actually for the Chicago White Sox. He was a relief pitcher for the Chicago White Sox. He played in AA and AAA, then made some appearance for the White Sox, but he was in Japan playing for Tokyo Giants. But now he's in a minor league deal and playing the spring training for the Milwaukee Brewers. I wish nothing for the bad. I remember when he was first called up for the majors for the Seattle Mariners, his first interview was to me. So, and I ended up meeting him, and I ended up meeting him and his wife when he played for the Charlotte 49ers. And I ended up interviewing him and another Brazilian player who was playing for the Louisville Bats, Leonardo Reginato.
Yeah, it's always good to see the game of baseball grow internationally and be able to, um, and for stars from anywhere around the globe to be able to make big strides within the game of baseball.
Speaking of the war, the game of baseball being developed worldwide, next week you have the start of the World Baseball Classic.
Oh, absolutely, I've been seeing the promos for that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Brazil isn't in there. They were eliminated in the qualifier two for Nicaragua, sadly. But United States is in it. They are the qualifier as a host. They won the last time was played back in 2017. I remember it was a really intense game in Miami, and you have some interesting teams. I bet the favorites would be Cuba, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Japan. I wouldn't even say Netherlands. Great Britain has a interesting team, even though they're debuting. Israel is an interesting team as well. They have some. Do you know that some of the players playing in the Israel baseball team, they're not from Israel, but they can play for, but they can play for Israel because they're Jewish.
That actually kind of makes sense because I know if you're Jewish, um, you can claim a citizenship to Israel. So I know that that doesn't actually surprise me that they have that role in place. What is their roster like? Let's see. Israel roster. They've got a lot
Um,
of really good players.
yeah, I mean, from what I heard, they have Alex Katz, a guy that I know, Jock
Oh, they got
Peterson.
Big Jock. Oh, they got
Yeah,
Big
they
Jock.
have Jock Peterson from the uh, from the Dodgers. Their
Hey,
manager was Ian.
he might have played for the Braves for like 5 months, but he's a legend.
You
In
also have
Atlanta,
Danny
me too.
Valencia, T.Y. Kelly. He played for the Mets.
Yeah, Ian Kinsler's the manager. So yeah, there's a yeah, that's a pretty good roster
So
for
we'll see
Israel.
what happens in the.
I wonder, does Israel's soccer team do something similar?
I don't think FIFA would allow it. I guess the MLB, which runs the World Baseball Classic, is more loose in terms of in terms of kind of who can qualify to play for a national team than would say FIFA.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because right now, like, if you were to get the best Jewish soccer players to all play for Israel, like, what would that team look like for Israel? See, so on the U.S., Matt Turner and DeAndre Yedlin are both Jewish. So, will either one of them defect to play for Israel? Let me see. See, I'm trying to find out who else would play. Um, I'm trying to figure it out because I see the two U.S. players. What about other teams?
But but the roster, the U.S. roster for the World Baseball Classic is loaded. You have Kyle Schwarber, Mookie Betts, Mike Trout. You have uh, Adam Ottavino, um, Adam Wainwright, Pete Alonso, Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, the pitchers I think is not the best, but definitely the infielders and outfielders are loaded. You have Pete Alonso, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Jeff McNeil, Mookie Betts, Kyle Schwarber, Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker. I mean, it's a really interesting, you know, offensive roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roster that you would think can win it all. But I mean, obviously, there's some tough competition. And shout out to Shohei Otani, who's going to get the experience of carrying a whole team in this term before he has to do it all season with the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, what does Cuba's roster look like? Got Ronald Banals. You have Onike Garcia. You have Let's see. Yeah, Monsana. Sepsidus is from there. Hmm. Colombia. Yeah. So it's going to be a fun tournament.
Oh, definitely. It's like I remember 2017 World Baseball Classic was just static. Was just a really insane, environment. Sadly, it was scheduled for the last time was scheduled for March 2020 in Arizona, but there was a little bit of issue called COVID.
Yeah. Very unfortunate. So we'll definitely have to keep up with the World Baseball Classic starting next week. So really quick, some other quick notes. A little bit of NASCAR. Kyle Busch wins the race on Sunday at Fontana at the California Splash Auto Club Speedway. Kyle Busch, I mean, look, he was struggled crazy last year. He did win a race at the Bristol Dirt, but was basically irrelevant the last half of the year. Had major contract issues with his old team, Joe Gibbs Racing, which he had been at since 2008. He leaves them, goes to Richard Childress Racing, a team that really hasn't been great since the death of Dale Earnhardt. Um, and right now, they are the hottest team in the league right now. I mean, they could have won the Clash, they could have won the 500, um, and they won on Sunday in California. Kyle Busch looks like himself. He looks motivated. He looks willing to do the moves on the racetrack that are required to win these races, and it looks like he's in full cohesion with his crew chief Randall Barnett, and that is huge for any driver and any team. So RCR might be back. So I'll be curious to see how that progresses throughout the season. It's interesting too because Denny Hamlin, driver for the 11 of Joe Gibbs, former teammate of Kyle Busch, he came out on his podcast today and said that Joe Gibbs really, really wanted to keep Kyle Busch, but what they would have had to pay to keep him would have, quote, bankrupted the team. So some drama there at Joe Gibbs Racing. And so far this year, they really haven't been that good. So I think they might rue the day that Kyle Busch left for RCR and Chevrolet. Also, it's sad to see Fontana go. It definitely has put on some really good races in the past couple of years, put on some great IndyCar races in the past. Because what's going to happen is NASCAR is selling. So right now, Fontana is a 2-mile racetrack. It's on 530 acres of land. They're selling 80% of that land, and they're going to try to build a half-mile racetrack, a half-mile short track for future NASCAR races, which at earliest will not start until 2025 and 2 years from now. So it'll be interesting to see how that project progresses, and I think it's imperative that it is a success because otherwise NASCAR would not have a presence in Los Angeles and in the second biggest market in the entire country, which I think would be very bad for the sport. Some quick NHL notes. Shout out Dylan Becker. Barry Trotz returns to the Nashville Predators as GM. Barry Trotz was the head coach for a while in Nashville, led the Predators to their only Stanley Cup final appearance. Actually, no, I take that back. That's not true. It was, what was his name? It was Travolta, something like that.
But he took the Predator. But he took the Predator to the really insane run back in 2016, 2017. That was, I remember how
he set them up for
excited.
that. Yeah, he set them up because David Pohle, who's been the GM since the inception for the Nashville Predators, just recently stepped down. So obviously, shout out to him because to be a GM in any professional sports team for 26 years is incredible. So certainly an incredible run. I mean, because I know the Predators up until the last 10 years haven't had a ton of playoff success, but to literally start a new franchise from the ground up, one of the smallest markets in a southern market that really had no idea what hockey was. I mean, literally, when the Predators started in Nashville, they had to hold hockey education sessions across Tennessee just to educate people how the game was played because no one down here knew what the heck was going on.
And it was tough because, it was also, if you think about it, how hard it is in the South, Atlanta had a hockey franchise and nobody remembers about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Atlanta Flames, they don't even cares. I mean, Houston doesn't have a hockey team. Only really Tampa, Dallas, and Nashville has it really worked. It worked well. I mean,
And
Carolina's doing well right now, but
and I mean, there's the Florida Panthers, but it's hard to say that they're not based in Miami. I mean, they're like an hour away from Miami.
yeah, and most of the time, up until the last year or two, they really weren't having good crowds either. So, it's good to see uh, Trotz be uh, back in the Music City. Of course, he had 557 wins with the Predators, and he won a Stanley Cup with the Capitals, not the Predators. But definitely helped the Predators get into a point where they could be competitive, and we saw them eventually go on to win a Stanley Cup, or win the Western Conference back in 2017, and fall to the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6. So obviously, the Predators haven't quite made it back to that point, but maybe Barry Trotz can get them back into that point. Also, some other NHL news, trade deadlines going on, some big names. Patrick Kane, longtime Chicago Blackhawk, is going to the New York Rangers. Obviously, Kane's getting up there in age, but certainly a big story there. Also, Timo Meyer, a longtime San Jose Sharks player, one of the best players they've ever had, going to the New Jersey Devils. So, big moves there amongst many others across the NHL. Anyway, so last American topic. This past weekend was the kickoff for the Major League Soccer. And shout out Nashville SC getting off to a good start. 2-0 win over New York.
Yeah, a depleted New York roster. I mean, after they won back in 2021, their roster is completely, has been really decimated. I mean, if you think about it, look at this lineup. It's almost unrecognizable compared. Like the only players that I recognize is the three Brazilians: Thales Magno, Gabriel Pereira, and Thiago Andrade. The rest are not as much. I mean, I know they had another Brazilian sign, defender Thiago Martins, which is a promising player, but I like New York brought a lot of Brazilian players, but their roster is completely different compared to like when they win 2 years ago.
Yeah, and also just a rough start for New York too. Red Bull lost to Orlando 1-0. So, I mean, rough start there. Shout out to the ATL though. They United take out San Jose Earthquake 2-1.
Yeah, on a really crazy game. They were losing up until the 93rd minute, and then Thiago Almada scored the 93rd and the 99 minutes. So it was a crazy
I should
game. I
have
mean,
gone.
you should have gone.
I
I
was
told you should. I
I
told
was in
you.
the Atlanta Metro. I did not go though.
Yeah, he sent me even a picture of the Mercedes Benz Stadium. And shout out to the South. 65,000 showed up in Mercedes Benz Stadium, and 60. Oh, no, Siri. Uh, and 65,000 fans show up in Atlanta, and 67,000 fans show up in Charlotte, North Carolina for the opener for the Charlotte FC. I know they lost 1-0 to New England Revolution, but they had a huge crowd on Saturday, and they lost.
I'll say this, man. Atlanta is because I stayed in one of one of the trendiest neighborhoods in that city. There are Atlanta United flags everywhere down there. I mean, they are passionate about their soccer team in Atlanta. They love United.
Yeah, they're going through a rebuild in the rest. I mean, they just lost their idol for this generation, Josef Martinez. He left, but so they're in a rebuild. I see they started Luis Araujo, so I guess this shows that the rumors that he would have come back to Brazil probably are going to be down. I'm just saying now they have two Brazilians. When I was there covering it, they had none.
Absolutely, and it's just I really am going to have to go back down there and go to a game specifically because definitely Mercedes-Benz Stadium is just a magnificent stadium. I was out in Atlanta to see some concerts, see some family. I also went to the College Football Hall of Fame. I should have put that on there. if you definitely have that chance, go to the
It's
college
a
football
really
experience.
awesome place. I've been there a couple of times. Great atmosphere. It's a great
Oh,
historical place.
absolutely. And you can learn a lot, even if you know all about college football like I do.
Th-
I
That's
just
where
love
I
standing there. Go ahead.
that's where I watched the 28-3 debacle of the Falcons.
Oh man. Well, at least that was a cool place to watch it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I wish you could have. Me and my brother went down there. We were like so happy to be there watching. And when it was 28-3, we were like, "Oh my god, we this historical place, and then we're gonna see Atlanta explode." And then you know what happens next.
I mean, that's literally too. That would have been the best place too, because like that literally would have been amazing. So a bit of an update. Sakai Ziegler has been ruled out for the rest of the night. Not surprised. Balls though are up by 9, 34-25. So I guess they're playing inspired for ZZ, and that doesn't surprise me. It seems like the type of guy that you would want to rally around if he went down. So shout out to the team. Hopefully they continue to fight through the adversity tonight.
So keeping up with soccer, 115 minutes, second half of the extra time. Still Flamengo 1-0, 1-1 in the aggregate. Flamengo still playing a lot of offense, but no score. It looks like it's gonna go to penalties, but who knows? I thought Flamengo's gonna lose, and I was ready to be talking about Vitor Pereira being fired, but they're still
Okay,
alive.
if this goes to extras, you got to call it.
Okay,
You're
so
gonna have to do a radio call if this thing goes to
uh,
extras.
okay, so let me just give a brief update in the Paulista State Championship. I'm disappointed in my Internacional de Limeira. They are representing the area around here that literally makes the border of Americana. So I consider them kind of representing like the area of Americana, even though they're completely different city. But they lost 5-0 to Guarani. They couldn't play in their stadium because they had a lot of issues with the rain and a lot of damages in their parking lot, on their field. So they had to host this game in Sorocaba. Bad loss. I mean, I thought their coach was gonna get fired, but I guess they're gonna keep their coach for their last game. If they tie, they're saved from relegation. But their fans are just mad because they have the worst attack. They only scored 4 goals and suffer 18 goals. So they are the worst attack and the worst defense. Eh, Santos tied with Corinthians on at home 2-2. So it was an interesting game for me. I think for me, I feel like Corinthians dominated the game most of the time. Had a really tough game, really especially good first half, and they had a one goal that was nulled by VAR. Was a controversial decision by Edna Alves, but at the end, even the player admitted Igor. Even the player Yuri Alberto admitted that he influenced the play and he was offside. But then he scored the first goal. Santos tied with Angelo. Then Corinthians scored again with Jorge Guedes. And then at the end of the game, Corinthians made a young a young Corinthians player made a bad decision. And then Santos got a penalty and Marcos Leonardo scored 2-2. And that tied made Santos still viable for a playoff spot. But they have to win and hopefully Botafogo of Ribeirão Preto at least ties with Sao Paulo at home. So Santos going to depend on Sao Paulo to get to the playoffs. So Santos has to win on the road versus Ituano, and Botafogo of Ribeirão Preto cannot win Sao Paulo. And São Paulo lost at home versus São Bernardo. I mean, shout out to São Bernardo. They are one of the lowest budgets in this Paulistão, but they are second overall and second in Group D, only behind the first overall current champions Palmeiras. They're still fighting to have a home playoff game hosting Palmeiras. That's going to be decided on the last this Sunday. But shout out to them. Even with all their budget limitations, they got a really good campaign. Even some players are rumored to go to Corinthians and Sao Paulo, but shout out to them. Um,
And shout out to them too because they have 20. They have the most goals of any team.
Yeah, 21 compare. Yeah, 21. They have a they have a dynamic, fast offense. Their coach Marcio Zanardi has been in the club for 2 years, so he's been kind of this long coach that has been really been trusted, and they have a really good company running behind them. Magnum. They have a CEO and everything, so they're really doing well. And I feel like they're going to be really giving Palmeiras trouble in the quarterfinals even if they play in Sao Paulo or São Bernardo. Corinthians gonna play on Saturday because they're already the number one team in the Group C, and they're not gonna be so they're already qualifying the number one team. The second spot in the Group C is interesting because if Flamengo and Independiente del Valle going penalties, the extra time just ended. Now going penalties.
Oh man, here we go.
So
It's gonna Victor Pierre's job on the line.
yeah, Vitor Pereira's job is on the line on the penalty kicks. Wow.
Man, gonna be
Uh,
crazy.
so do you want me to keep it live? I'll
Yes.
try my best to call the penalty kicks. But just to finish up Paulistão, Sao Paulo, even though if they lost, they're still the number one team in the Group B. But they have the same points as Agua Santa. They have a better goal differential, 11-3. But Agua Santa is playing so really good games the last week. So have São Bernardo and Agua Santa playing in like a ABC derby, ABCD derby, kind of they literally are the border between each other, and they are fighting for a home playoff game. So if Agua Santa wins and São Paulo ties, they host a playoff game, and São Bernardo is also fighting to host a playoff game. Um, and the only playoff this team that has been decided is Botafogo or Santos. The other seven spots have been and also Group C between São Bento and Ituano has not been decided. So there's two playoff spots for grabs in the Paulistão. I think it's gonna be Ferroviária and Santos are gonna be in the playoffs.
In terms of relegation, it's very obvious too. If they lose, they're
They're
relegated.
relegated.
So they're
But Ferroviária is the craziest situation of all. They are right now relegated, but if they win, they have a good chances of going to the playoffs. So imagine like this. So Ferroviária is like lose, get relegated, win, go to the playoffs.
yeah, that's not a spot you would want to be in at all.
I mean,
It's
I don't know. Like
too.
it's like going like 8 or 80.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's. I just can't imagine the amount of pressure is going to be on.
And they're gonna play Inter Limeira, which is also fighting for a relegation. So it's gonna be a direct game for a relegation spot. But even if Internacional de Limeira loses, they still have to, hope that Ituano loses or at least ties. Because if Ituano ties, then so for Inter Limeira, even if they lose, Ituano has to win the game, and they have to lose to get relegated.
Yeah. And what about
I think
Portuguesa? Is there any way they can play their way out of it?
yes, they would have to win their game versus Mirassol on the road, and hope that Ituano ties the game because they would have surpassed Ituano on goal differential.
Wow, it's gonna
And,
be a stressful
they
last
have,
day.
yeah, they have to really. So it's going to be a miracle. So they have to win their game and hope for Ferroviária and Ituano to at least tie their games.
It's gonna be a fun one, and I see they play them all Sunday afternoon at 2.
Yeah,
My
only one game not Corinthians and Santo André because literally Corinthians already claimed the first spot in the Group C, and Santo André is already eliminated in Group D. So this game's going to be on Saturday afternoon. I think it was a wise decision since you're gonna have games in like in the metro area. So it's like, why not kind of get this over with on Saturday, since it's not deciding anything in terms of qualifying for playoffs or relegation. But all the other games going to be played on 2 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Brazilian time. Second division in the state of São Paulo, if you want to research, is called Serie A2. I'll be broadcast tomorrow. In 15 de Piracicaba, and this is like kind of like this is the second division of the state. I mean, it's a really competitive. Tomorrow is eighth spot, 15 de Piracicaba. Not currently ninth spot, I guess, because Oeste defeated Lemense. So they really have to win tomorrow to get back in the qualifying playoff zone. So it's a 15 de Piracicaba, which is the team area where I broadcast. They're gonna play Comercial, which is the number 5 spot. If they win, they're gonna go all the way to like 5. But if they lose, I don't. Their chance is gonna get slim. And currently, right now in Rio, I think they're gonna get ready to their penalty shootouts. I think they're getting ready.
The Rio, as their prayers are in Christ the Redeemer right now.
Yeah, I mean, one person in specific is more than ever praying for this to go Flamengo's way, which is Vitor Pereira, because his job is on the line right now. His job is literally on the line.
Man, and just talk about how big this would be for their opponents if they were to pull this out.
I mean, I think for Independiente del Valle, of course, going to be big. Defeating the Libertadores champion, the Dynasty Flamengo, is going to be big. But so they're going to start. I think Flamengo is going to be the first one to kick. De Arrascaeta, the one that scored the miracle goal, is going to be the first one to kick. Vitor Pereira is holding Everton Ribeiro. Look really nervous right now. He looks kind of like trying to keep it together, but he's really stressed. I can feel it.
Oh, I could imagine why. I can't imagine why he would.
So De Arrascaeta gonna be the first one to is gonna start the penalty shootouts, and saved by the keeper! Saved by the goalkeeper! He shot on the left side, the keeper went straight down in, saved by the goalkeeper.
Wow.
Saved by the keeper, still 0-0.
Oh man. His mother-in-law to
Yeah.
come in and save the
Saved
goals
by
out.
Ramirez, the keeper Ramirez.
Man. See, that's always. But here's the thing, though: when the very first shot of a penalty gets saved, it feels like it almost turned into a slugfest. But the other team now will get their shot saved.
So now number 8 is gonna be the one. So number 8, he's gonna go. Scored 1-0. 1-0. 1-0. Faravelli. 1-0. Vitor Pereira is talking to their players. Look really distressed. 1-0.
Oh man, this next one is so big. They gotta get this one.
1-0 for Independent Del Valle. Santos almost saved by this much. He touched the ball, but the ball got in. Faravelli scores. Now, Davi Luiz, former Chelsea and PSG player, is going to be the one taking the second shot in the penalty shootouts. In a rubber band holding.
Firepower.
What?
They got some firepower.
Yeah, Davi Luiz versus Ramirez. Davi Luiz scores 1-1. He's chanting the crowd, getting the crowd fired up. Santos goes to kind of congratulate him on the goal. 1-1. Davi Luiz scores. He shot on the right side, and
Yes, we're going down to the bottom of the second frame here for Valle.
So
Did I
now
say
this
that right? Valet?
what?
Am I saying that right? Valet? Their
Independiente
opponents.
del Valle. Yeah, the Valley. You can say
Valet.
Valley.
Yeah, Valet. Yeah, Valet.
So second shot is gonna be right now. He he comes and scores 2-1. Hoyos 2-1
Mm,
Independiente del Valle. 2-1 Independiente del Valle.
man,
Hoyo scores.
Victor
He shot.
Piera's whole job right now rests in the hands of his goalkeeper.
Yeah, Santos has to save the keeper. Santos is not doing a good job. The Hoyo's shot in the middle. He went for the left side again. I believe is gonna be uh, Everton Cebolinha, Everton Little Onion, as we translate in English. Everton Little Onion, Everton Cebolinha versus Ramirez. Third, third Flamingo penalty. He shoots, scores 2-2. Everton Cebolinha 2-2. Flamengo still alive.
Yeah, I'm looking. I've typed in flamingo on Twitter. I'm looking through some of the comments. I'm honestly having to translate the tweets. One woman says, "If flamingo wins tomorrow, I'll buy a beer for the first one I see on the street."
Yeah.
It's just interesting how like different countries react to different sports.
Yeah, probably gonna be some mad Flamengo fans probably calling out Vitor Pereira. Of course, my the host of my radio show is gonna be mocking Vitor Pereira so fearless tomorrow if Flamengo loses because he hates Vitor Pereira like I do, but he makes fun of him
Like,
a lot.
there's one guy that's like, ha 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 ha, Fala de Kim. I don't know exactly what that means.
Like follow, like talk like, what are you talking about? So it Independiente del Valle scores again. Previtali scores again. So they have not missed a penalty. Scored. He shot on the right side. Santos really again came this close to save it, but couldn't save. So 4-3 from Independiente del Valle. Flamengo has to score, but if Flamengo misses, they're done.
Oh man, he is on teetering on the edge
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Actually, it's going to be Flamengo fourth penalty. So they still can miss this one, but so
It'd be basically done if they miss this one.
Flamengo now scores. Flamengo scores with Gerson, fourth penalty, 3-3. Flamengo ties again. Gerson, the 15 million euros midfielder, scores 3-3. Yeah, he's celebrating a lot. So I guess the next one's gonna be Del Valle, a Del Valle player. I believe number 5.
Oh, I just realized I have this on Buying Sports.
Schmuck.
Okay,
Are
I've
you
just
watching
turned it on.
Schmuck?
Yeah, so now, okay, which one's the blue team? That's
Independiente Del Valle.
it scores.
He
I don't know.
scores. He scores. He
I don't.
scores. 4-3. He scores. Schmutz. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he scores
I just
4-3.
realized I had this channel.
So what right now? What's the score down there?
uh, they don't have a score on here.
No, for penalties. Who shot right now on your screen?
Okay, so Flamingo's coming up. There's no graphics on the screen. I have
Oh,
no. I wouldn't have
so
any
I
clue.
think so.
Okay,
Is it?
so it's 4-3. So this is it. So I'm
Oh,
not
Gabriel
sure.
Barbosa. It's gonna be Gabriel Barbosa. Gabigol. Gabigol. Don't say what. Oh my God, Gabigol. The one of the most valuable players of Flamengo. He scores. He always. He's a tough. He scores.
Okay,
He's
so
a.
I'm ahead of you by like 10 seconds, I think.
Let's see. Try maybe I think I'm trying to reopen because I guess mine was in delay.
I love this little kid. He's going nuts right here that they're showing on. I don't know if they're showing the same exact shots down there in that broadcast. So this
Yeah,
is in
I
the Flamingo Stadium, right?
yeah, Flamingo Stadium. Number
Oh
4 is gonna
man,
be the one deciding
Orlando
for
Darcy. Oh man, that whole
Roman.
stadium's got to be an
Vitor
absolute.
Pereira's job is on the line right now, more than ever.
Can you hear the audio? If I because I have it on now, listening to it.
Oh, he scores. He scores. I think it's done. It's done. He scored. It's done. Independiente del Valle
Oh
is
my
the
gosh!
Recopa Sul-Americana champions.
And
Vitor
that dude just stared down in the entirety of Rio.
Vitor Pereira right now probably should start updating his LinkedIn because I don't know if it's gonna be employed to fly Flamengo by tomorrow morning. And I guess Vitor Pereira's mother-in-law is gonna get a visit of him because he's gonna go back to Portugal. I don't know if Flamengo's front office is gonna keep him after losing not one, not two, but three championships in a spare of a month.
Man, that is brutal. Because losing one championship is hard enough, but three in the span of a month. These are some interesting celebrations. One dude was like kissing his cell phone.
Yeah, I guess he's doing probably a Instagram live or something. But I want to see Vitor Pereira's reaction. I wish the camera would get because I want to see. He's probably like,
Because
I
I'm just
am
seeing
F.
pictures right now.
He is. I bet he looks like, oh my god, I'm done. Corinthians fans right now are laughing so hard, so hard. I cannot even imagine.
It's like I guess the equivalent of like a Gonzaga losing their conference or something, you know, or like Clemson losing the ACC. This would be the good comparison.
Or even like seeing Ole Miss, Tennessee fans seeing Ole Miss like losing the SC championship, losing a bowl game, and I don't know what something else.
Well, that's how I felt about South Carolina losing to Notre Dame. So
But as my last update in Brazilian sports, so Flamengo now lost their third championship in a month. Congratulations to Independent Del Valle. And last, Brazil and US are qualified for the FIBA World Cup, the Basketball World Cup, which is going to be hosted by Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia in this year. It's going to be so the teams are for the North and South America: Brazil, US, Canada, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela. Africa, you have Angola, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivory, Egypt, and South Sudan. Asia, you have Australia, China, Iran, Japan, Jordan, Lebanon, New Zealand, and the Philippines. In Europe, you have France, Finland, Georgia, Germany, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Montenegro, Serbia, Slovenia, Spain. I bet we're going to see a lot of NBA prospects in this tournament, which starts on April 29.
yeah, that's going to be exciting. I wonder, is Victor Wembanyama playing in it?
I would have think so.
Yeah, because I mean, if he's playing for France, then that's going to be much watch TV right there.
Yeah.
But I guess before we head on out, one last update from Knoxville. Vols lead by 10, 46-36, 14 minutes left in the game. And a game that's seen them lose to Kai Ziegler to injury, but they are playing well nevertheless. So good to see them fight through some adversity tonight. But obviously, if Sakai Ziegler is done for the season, which I'm afraid he might be, that's going to be a tall task to overcome for the Tennessee Volunteers. But that is all the time that we have today for episode 66 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. From Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, we have Gustavo Tomazeli. And as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, it's Nick Hill. Um, thank you for listening to the only podcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports, where on occasion we get to react live to sports. I still think about the Braves World Series that we reacted live to, and obviously tonight, the end of the Victor Pereira era. Unfortunately, you're not going to get to see him return to Corinthians. That's, I guess, a bad thing, but at the same time, what comes around goes around. Y'all take care.
Fresh, y'all, and we won't stop until we get y'all, till we get y'all.